Now, if you guys somehow missed this big ol' leak happening over the weekend, 30 minutes of Assassin's Creed Valhalla gameplay made its way to the internet, and Ubisoft has been doing their best to erase it. People are constantly downloading and re-uploading it. It is finding new homes constantly, so there are lots of ways you can find this gameplay to watch it. I'm not going to use any of that gameplay while talking about it because I don't feel like having my video taken down, so we'll just show footage from actual official trailers. But the point is that there has been a pretty significant leak of gameplay, and it's being met with a lot of different reactions. Christine, could you get the air? She can't hear me. I gotta move. Hopefully I step in the right place again when I come back. Most of the responses I've seen to this gameplay have been negative, but there kind of is two different camps for why people are not happy about it. I think one of them is a perfectly valid criticism, which we'll talk about a little later, but the first one I want to talk about are people who just think it straight up looks bad. Now, a lot of the arguments for why it looks bad is some of the gameplay looks choppy, the visuals aren't great, there's a lot of really awkward things with how some of the cutscenes are done and people talking and all that kind of stuff. And my immediate thought just seeing that gameplay and thinking about it is, well, yeah. Obviously, the gameplay is a work in progress. It says in the corner, work in progress. This is not final gameplay. And there's not really any indication of where this gameplay originally came from. I think because we have an upcoming Ubisoft event, a lot of people are thinking that this might be an early leak of a gameplay they were going to show then. I don't see any real proof that that's the case here, though. It's entirely possible that this is internal gameplay they were using for their own research and back and forth, and honestly, it could be from any time. Just because the leak is happening right now does not mean this particular gameplay is from a recent version of the game. It is entirely possible that this is several months old and it's just not representative of what the final product is going to be like. Now, to be fair, it is possible that this is recent. We don't really have any good evidence for or against that concept, and I don't think we'll really know more until Ubisoft's event, which is very soon on the 12th. If this is the gameplay we end up seeing at their event for a game that is scheduled to come out in less than half a year, then yes, I agree. It looks a little rough. But if this is just something that's older or, something that isn't even really polished work that's going to be like the final version, I don't understand jumping on the bandwagon of saying something looks bad when clearly it is not representative of what the final product is going to be. Now, the other argument I've seen about the gameplay that I think is a much more valid thing is it looks a lot like Odyssey, which, depending on your stance about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, is either a very good or very bad thing. I myself, when I first played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, actually dropped it after about 10 hours because, for one thing, I think I was just really burnt out from open world games. A lot of stuff had been coming out for the past few years that was just open world after open world after open world, and I needed to breathe a little bit. But on top of that, the game just honestly isn't very much like Assassin's Creed, or at least what people associate as being like Assassin's Creed. Origins had already changed things up a little bit and added slightly more RPG aspects, but it still had a lot of the core aspects that felt like an Assassin's Creed game, and Odyssey got rid of a lot of that, adding stuff like rarity level equipment and having your character level be super important for how effective an assassin you are. The fact that you could not assassinate a lot of targets outright because you weren't high enough level was a really annoying thing. That being said, I did end up revisiting Odyssey at the start of this whole quarantine period, and I ended up falling in love with it, largely because I gave it a larger shot and I disassociated myself a lot more from what I expect an Assassin's Creed game to be. But that doesn't necessarily work for everyone that's looking forward to this game. If you are a big fan of older Assassin's Creed titles leading up to Syndicate or even Origins, and you don't like the changes they made in Odyssey, this is a pretty good showing an example of why you might not be excited for Valhalla. And it doesn't surprise me that this is the route they're going. I was really hoping they would actually take a bit of a step back and try to return a little bit more to series roots, because while I liked Odyssey, it definitely doesn't play like traditional Assassin's Creed. It is much more of a fantasy action RPG, which is cool, but at the end of the day, it's not why I went out of my way to buy that game in the first place. I will say that while a lot of the gameplay did show us aspects that looked very similar to Odyssey, like having activatable special moves and the skill trees and the equipment menu, it does look like there are at least some changes away from that. There wasn't as much focus on having, like, for instance, a sneak attack damage section, which was something that happened in Odyssey and was the reason why you weren't as good at assassination as you should have been compared to other games. So I think that is something they're kind of walking back a little bit. Again, this is just giving you a snippet of the overall experience, and I'm not quite sure how truly representative of the final game it really is. And that's really the big problem with a lot of leaks like this, especially this one, is that there's not really any context accompanying the gameplay. It is a raw 30 minutes that doesn't really give you any indication of how far into the game it takes place. It doesn't give you any indication of how old this gameplay is, whether it's something that they worked on months ago or if it's something from as recent as last week. And there's not really any kind of additional talking or exposition taking place to let you know how things have actually changed differently for better or worse compared to the previous games. Now, to clarify, I'm not saying that I think Valhalla is going to be this amazing game and that we shouldn't, think critically about it and be worried about some of the stuff we're seeing in this gameplay. I just think that at the same time, you shouldn't take this gameplay without any context as some kind of damning proof the game is going to be terrible. I'm much more interested in seeing what gets revealed at the upcoming Ubisoft event, and even more so, actually having the game released, see some more people actually playing it, get their hands on it, and really see what the response then is. Because I really trust that a lot more than random gameplay that we don't really know when it came from. Switching gears over to some Xbox news, we got a lot of different things going on, the first of which is we have the official date for their upcoming showcase event. This has been the really big event a lot of people have been waiting on and hoping to learn some more information as far as first-party exclusives go for the Xbox Series X. We were told before that it would be sometime in July, and we now know for sure it's going to be on July 23rd. There's all kinds of speculation and hopes for what are going to be at this event, especially after all the news that PlayStation dropped during June. The only thing we really know for sure is that they are going to be showing off some Halo Infinite gameplay. That is the one game they have confirmed. They have lightly mentioned some other first-party devs underneath Microsoft that will have stuff to show. We don't have any indication of how many games they're going to reveal. There's all kinds of rumors as far as what games we could see. Lots of people are hoping for some older franchises to make a comeback, like Perfect Dark or Fable. I'm personally really hoping for Fable, but the point of the matter is we really don't know right now. It's just Halo, and I think that's part of the thing that's adding to a lot of the mystery for a lot of people. They're just kind of latching on to what might happen and really hoping for some big surprises. I know I am, but we're just not going to know more until that day on July 23rd. Now, something that is happening alongside this event on the 23rd, Xbox is also participating in Summer Game Fest with a really interesting and I think awesome idea that from the 21st to 27th, you're going to be able to download over 60 different game demos that are tied into basically what would have been E3. It seems as though a lot of games that would have initially been locked behind the E3 show floor for people to wait in lines and try out and play and just get little snippets of is now just going to be made available on an Xbox One to download during that week. Now, there have been some additional clarifications with these demos because they aren't exactly traditional demos where it's, for a game that has been recently released and this is just a small snippet of it. This is early gameplay, so a lot of them have that kind of extra word of warning of like, hey, this is mid-development, not everything's going to permanently be like this, please don't judge it too harshly if there is something about it you don't like. They've already revealed a couple games that are going to be available as part of these demos, some of which have already existed on PC, like Chris Tales, which is actually really cool. If you haven't tried the demo yet, I recommend checking it out when it comes to Xbox or on PC if you have that option right now. But they've said in total there will be over 60 games, so going to be really interesting to see what that full list includes. Wrapping up the Xbox-focused news, it looks as though they are the most recent company to show interest in buying WB Interactive. This is some news that's been circulating over the past couple weeks as far as other companies showing interest, including Take-Two Interactive, and it looks as though Xbox has now joined the party as far as possibly buying that company. There are a lot of studios contained within WB Interactive, some of which are responsible for some really big hit games. Some big ones worth pointing out include Rocksteady, who's responsible for some fantastic Batman games, and NetherRealm Studios, who's responsible for not only making the Mortal Kombat series of games, but also Injustice. Also worth noting is TT Game Studios, who is behind all the various different LEGO franchise games. So there are a lot of pretty big name studios underneath this WB Interactive umbrella. Again, there are multiple companies showing interest in this right now. It'd be very interesting if Xbox were to pick them up though, because again, that causes them to have another first-party company to make games kind of exclusively for Xbox. Obviously, they'd make their way to PC as well, but that gives them a large number of developers to work with that is kind of denied from Sony for the PlayStation. On that note of exclusive games, or games not remaining quite as exclusive as they used to be, this past week it was confirmed that Horizon Zero Dawn is in fact actually coming to PC. This was a major rumor at the start of the year that never ended up really getting confirmed or got any additional news for, and it has just come out that yes, Horizon Zero Dawn is making its way to the PC on August 7th, which is a lot sooner than I would have anticipated considering how recently they announced it. Now, what's really interesting about the timing of this to me is what does this mean for Horizon Forbidden West? Because if the first game in the series is making its way to PC, it stands to reason that Forbidden West is going to end up following suit as well. What's interesting about this timing, though, is clearly Horizon Zero Dawn is being released on PC just in time for the PS5's launch. It's opening it up to a larger audience in the hopes that people are going to play that game, think it's awesome, and then end up breaking down and buy a PS5 so they can play its sequel, which will at least be a timed exclusive. The question then is, will Horizon Forbidden West have a PC release date merely a year or two after the PS5 release, similar to what happened with Death Stranding, which is coming to PC very soon, or is this going to be some bizarre case where we get Horizon Zero Dawn on PC and then Forbidden West stays a PS5 exclusive until the PS6 is ready to come out? Personally, I'm theorizing a little more on the side of it's only going to be a year or two delay before it makes its way to PC, but we really don't have any hard indication either direction right now. All we know is Horizon Zero Dawn is making its way to PC, and Forbidden West will probably end up having some kind of similar situation someday in the future. Still waiting on that Bloodborne PC port. Speaking of ports and remasters, Crysis has been delayed. It was going to have a remastered edition launched on July 23rd, which was actually news they were going to break, but right before that news was broken, gameplay and screenshots were leaked, and a lot of people didn't really care how it looked. Particularly, it just didn't really look remastered. It kind of just looked like the same game coming to new systems, and in response to that general public opinion of just not being very big fans of it, it looks as though Crysis is now being pushed back to a later date. It will no longer be in that July 23rd date. We don't know when it's going to release now on the Switch, but it is going to come out eventually, and hopefully more polished up than what that leaked gameplay showed. It also looks as though Nintendo might actually be having a Nintendo Direct this month. That's been a very hot topic for a while of when will Nintendo do another true Nintendo Direct. We haven't had one in basically almost a year now. There has been, of course, Nintendo Direct Minis and Pokemon Presents, but not a proper Nintendo Direct. A source who previously talked about the Nintendo Direct Mini and was correct about it is saying that we will be getting a Nintendo Direct in July. If this ends up being a real event, we'll likely be seeing some reveals for things that have been long rumored for 2020, especially games that were supposed to make an appearance at E3 this year. For instance, the 35th anniversary Mario collection, which is still not an official thing, but everyone pretty much accepts as being something that is going to happen this year. And hopefully all kinds of other announcements for games we can look forward to in the fall season, because as it stands right now, most of Nintendo's big announced games for 2020 have already been released, and people are waiting and hoping to see that there are some other titles to get excited for before year's end. As for game releases this week, today you can look forward to a couple different ports coming out. Catherine Full Body Edition is making its way to the Switch, and Superliminal is coming out on all the major consoles, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch as well. Another game getting a multi-platform port this week is Crosscode, coming to all three major consoles on this Thursday, the 9th. And this Friday, we're getting the release of one of my most anticipated smaller games, Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2. And on that same day, the 10th, you can also look forward to Deadly Premonition 2 making its way to the Switch. That's it for the news this week, as well as some games to look forward to. I'll see you guys with another one of these videos next week, including covering some of the announcements that Ubisoft will make at their event on the 12th. You guys can, of course, also follow me on Twitter at Kevin Kenson to see my up-to-date reactions on news as it's happening. Until next time, guys, I'll see you later.